As we just talked about, the wages can relate it to the labor cost for firms and corporations, right? So we talk about the higher wages means the higher labor cost, and that might make the firms and corporations hire fewer workers, right? Therefore, in the labor markets, if I treat this as the wages on the vertical axis and labor quantity on the horizontal axis, the demand curve is downward sloping, right? That means if I have 2 points, this is point A, has the wages maybe at $10 per hour. Firms and corporations would like to hire 100 workers. And if now the wages lower to $8 per hour, that means the labor cost decrease, right? Firms and corporations would like to hire more workers, maybe at 130 workers, okay, at point B. So you can see now from A and B, we can compare that as the wages decrease, firms and corporations would like to hire more workers, right? So wages, so that we say that the wages and the labor demand, they're actually negatively related. So this is the typical labor demand curve, downward sloping. And today we will try to explain why the demand curve is downward sloping from another perspective, that is from productivity. Okay? So if you still remember, actually in previous chapter we introduced marginal physical product, right? MPP. We know that a worker's value to a firm is his or her marginal physical product. That means if firm or corporations decided to hire one more worker, he might consider what's the additional output that this worker can bring to the firm, right? And this is reflect on marginal physical product. So the marginal physical product is the change in total output associated with one additional unit of input. And this is the one that you already learned before. Marginal, I'll just write it down here, okay? So marginal physical product, MPP, will equal what we said, the change in total outputs. Change in total outputs, I use Q here represents the output. Divide the change in the inputs. Okay, so this is because here we just talk about the labor. So the change in input will reflect in labor hire. Okay, hire one more worker or not. And you can see that actually the marginal physical product typically will decline as more workers are hired. So this is one of the law of the diminishing marginal returns that we talked about before. If firms and corporations decided to hire more and more workers, then the marginal physical product would typically decline. Why it would decline? So additional workers will become less productive because they share a fixed amount of equipment with existing workers. Let's see one example for this. I also showed this example before. You can see this is the garbage truck, right? Okay. And then if we firm just hire one worker, this worker can drive the car, collect the trash, right? And if firm decided to hire a second worker, that could make this work become efficient because the first worker can just focus on driving the car, and then the second worker he might focus on collecting the trash, right? And then if firm decided to hire more worker, one more worker, okay, it still may works because the first worker still focus on driving, the second worker maybe focus on the south, maybe on the left hand side of the street to collect on the trash. And then the third worker might focus on the right hand side of the street to collect the trash. They still can cooperate pretty efficient. However, if firm decided to hire more workers, then it might probably lower the efficiency, right? This is what we say when firm decided to hire more and more workers at the end, okay, typically at the end, the marginal physical product will declines because there is only one garbage truck, right? So you can see if I hire more and more workers, it will actually bring even negative marginal physical product. So you can see this is another example from the table. Okay, you can see the first column, it shows from the different combinations from A to I, okay? And then the second column shows number of the pickers. being hired. Okay, so this is they will pick the strawberry. Okay, and then the third column will shows the total strawberry output. This will shows the total output, and then the last column shows the marginal physical product. You can see if we only have one worker, then the total output for this worker will be will be 5 boxes. Okay, will be 5 boxes. So the marginal physical product for first worker would just use the change in output 5, right? Divide the change in labor. So here I can show you. Let me just analyze this table a little bit. Okay, so if there is no, I will put the L here represents for number of the workers being hired. Okay, Q here represents the output, and then we also need to compute a marginal physical product, right? So if there is no worker, means there is no strawberry output, right? And then there is no marginal physical product. If firm now decided to hire one worker, okay, Marvin will be higher, okay? And then his output will be 5 boxes of the strawberry. So the marginal physical product for Marvin will be using the change in output. This will reflect the change in output, okay? 5, because this marginal physical product will equal the change in output divides the change in the labor force, right? And then now the change in output will be 5 equals 5 subtract 0, right? And then the change in labor will be 1 subtract 0. So we have Marvin's physical marginal physical product equal 5, right? If firm now decided to hire one more worker, George will join. Okay, so now firm have 2 workers. The total output will be equal 10. Okay, so we have 10 here. 10 will be the total outputs. Now I want to get the marginal physical product for George. So we use the change in output. 10 subtract 5, divide the change in labor, 2 subtract 1. We still get 5, okay, as the marginal physical product for George. Now firm decided to hire a third worker, okay, to join this strawberry picking, okay. Then if we hire third worker, the total outputs of those 3 workers will be 14, right? Then I want to count the marginal physical product for the third people. We'll use the change in output 14 subtract 10, divide the change in labor. We will have 4 boxes of the strawberries as the marginal physical product for the third worker. And then how about the fourth one? If firm decided to hire one more worker, for the fourth one, the total outputs will be 17. And then we can also compute the marginal physical products for the fourth people. We will use the change in output, 17 subtract 14, right? Divide the change in labor, 4 subtract 3. Then we will have the marginal physical product will equal 3 for the fourth worker. So you might see this is very similar to their garbage truck the example. At the beginning, we can see the marginal physical product for Marvin will equal 5 boxes, right? If we hire one more worker, the marginal physical product for George was still 5, right? However, if we hire more and more workers, the marginal physical product typically, okay, declines, right? Typically declines. So you can see, based on this, okay, we can draw the total outputs curve and then the marginal physical product curve. So the total output we can see from at the beginning from 0 to 5 to 10 to 14 to 17, it increased, right? I can draw here. So let me just draw a graph. If I treat this as the output, this is the output, okay? And this is the labor being higher. No labor, no outputs, right? As the labor increase, we have 5, we have 10, we have 14, we have 17. But you might notice the increasing rate actually declines, right? From 5 to 10 to 14 to 17, although the total output increase, however, the speed of total output increase actually declines. Okay, so this is why the total outputs, okay, the total output curve will lie this way. How about a marginal physical product? How about a marginal physical product? Marginal physical product at the beginning it might increase, right? But at the end it will decline. So here I will put this could be the maximum of the output. Maximum of the output. You can pay attention to how I draw the marginal physical product. First, I mark the point that the total output will reach the maximum. You can see the total output reach the maximum will be when there are 6 workers being hired, right? So 20. So this one, we have 20 total, 20 boxes of the 20 boxes of strawberry, right? 20 outputs of strawberries. And then you can see, we can find out the corresponding marginal physical product actually decline to 0 when we have 7 workers. Therefore, you might notice at the beginning, the marginal physical product increase, but it will decline. It might even become negative. Okay, so this curve here will represent the marginal physical product. And when marginal physical product reach zero, the total outputs reach the maximum. After that, the marginal physical product become negative and then the total output declines. Okay, so that will be very important, okay, how to show the total output and marginal physical product in the same graph. Okay, so you can see here, we'll just show you the total output and the marginal physical product. We can see the total outputs increases with each additional workers at the beginning, okay, at the beginning, until it reach the maximum. Then rises in output was slow, implies that the marginal physical product actually declined until it declined to 0. Then the total output will reach the maximum. So after the point G, you can see in this graph, okay, after the point G, no additional workers will be hired because if you hire one more worker, the total outputs will decline. That doesn't make sense, right, for a firm and corporation if the target is to maximize the profit. All right. So for the marginal physical product, there is another one associated with marginal physical product, which is marginal revenue product or marginal revenue. So productivity is important, and the value of the worker can be demonstrated by the worker's marginal revenue product. We said this is the marginal physical product that a worker, additional worker, can bring to the firm, but how much this product worth. So this one will measures by marginal revenue. Okay. So how we compute the marginal revenue? The marginal revenue is the change in total revenue associated with one additional unit of the inputs. So now I will add one more column here. So still from this table, okay, still from this one, we know this is the marginal physical product. And here we also want to compute how much this product will worth, right? So this will reflect on marginal revenue. I will put another column here, okay? This column I call it as price. So add one more, price. I add price here, okay? And then I assume the price of the strawberry will equal, I will assume the price of a strawberry will equal $2 per box, okay? $2 per box. Therefore, you can see for Marvin, okay, for Marvin, when we hire Marvin, okay, nothing changes in strawberries price, okay? Nothing changes in strawberries price. When a firm hire Marvin, the first person, okay, being hired, we notice Marvin can bring five boxes of strawberry, right? And then I want to ask how much this 5 boxes worth. So you might see it will worth actually $2 times five, right? That will be $10, right? So that will be $10. Then I might ask another question. If firm decided to hire George, the second worker, how much will be George's marginal physical product worth? Because the marginal physical product of George is still equal 5. 5 times 2 will still $10, right? And then if firm decided to hire a third worker, we know the third worker can bring additional 4 boxes of strawberry, right? Each boxes of strawberry worth $2. So the third worker, the marginal return for the third worker will be $8, right? How about the fourth worker? The fourth worker can bring additional 3 boxes of strawberry, right? Each box of the strawberry was $2. So the third worker actually can bring the marginal return of $6. And then that will shows the relationship, okay? The relationship between marginal physical product and marginal return. So the marginal return here, showing up here, okay, the marginal return I just marked here. This I will treat it as marginal return. So marginal return will just equal price, okay, equal price times the marginal physical product. Price times marginal physical product. And well, price, okay, P is the output price, right? So we assume P is always constant. P is always constant. As we just talked about, marginal physical product would typically declines as firms hire more workers, right? Therefore, marginal returns will also diminishing. And this is how the marginal return would set the upper limit of the wages an employee will pay. You can see here for Marvin, he can bring $10, right? Additional $10 for the firm. For George, he also bring additional $10 for the firm. However, for the third worker, he only bring $8. For the fourth worker, he will bring additional $6. So marginal return here will set the upper limit to the wages rate that employee will be willing to pay. So the lower of the diminishing returns will cause the marginal returns to decline as the quality of the labor employed increases. So look at this one. So this one will be another way to explain why the demand curve is downward sloping. Marginal returns set the upper limit for the wages, right? As more workers being hired, actually this wages rate declines. So you can see the relationship now. This labor here, okay, this column here, let me just put this column individually, okay? Look at this column here. This column will shows the the labor hire increase, right? So this is labor demand increases, right? Labor demand increases. However, for the marginal returns, it actually declines. This is what we call the marginal returns. Marginal return declines. And marginal returns declines, right? And marginal returns actually set the upper limit of the wages. So you can see this one we can also translate it to wages, right? So wages declines. Then you might find a relationship here. Labor demand, hire more laborers, actually the wages declines, right? Hire more laborers, wages declines. and they are negatively related. Finally, you can find out a relationship here. They are actually negatively related, these two. Okay, these two are negatively related. Wages and labor demand, they are negatively related. So this is from another way to verify why the demand curve is downward sloping. Okay, so this is due to more people will share the fixed quantity of the equipment facilities, like the garbage truck. Okay, so the supply of the labor. Okay, the supply of the labor talk about that will the firm. Sorry, this one will talk about the supply of the labor. So the number of the workers that will be hired by a firm is determined by demand for and by the supply of the labor. So this is why an employer is willing to pay workers no more than the marginal returns. So marginal returns set the upper limit of the wages. In practice, we know that workers particularly, okay, and typically, okay, receive the same wages rate in the same firm, but we can still see the difference. Okay, so here, this table, okay, just summarize what I draw here. Okay, you can see as here is very similar to the one we just add the price of the strawberry, right? So the price of the strawberries will equal $2 per boxes as I write here, and then you can observe that the marginal returns declines. Okay, marginal returns declines as we have more and more workers. So a firm will continue to hire as long as the next worker's marginal return is greater than the market wages. What does it mean? It means more workers are hired, we notice that the marginal return declines. And hiring will stop when the last workers hired has marginal return rate equal to the wages rate. Therefore, we will say the marginal return curve, okay, the marginal return curve is the labor demand curve. This one is the labor demand curve. And this would show you if now we have the wages rate at $6. Let me draw another graph here. Okay, so I put the marginal revenue of the workers. Okay, so this one will be marginal revenue of the workers or marginal returns of the workers. And this one shows the number of the workers being hired. Okay, L here represents the number of the worker demand. We know that the marginal returns will decline, right? Will decline here. Just see the graphs, just see the numbers here. At the beginning, it might not change, but at the end, it will decline. So this will be our marginal, this will shows the marginal return. Okay, so this one is marginal return curve. There's more workers being hired, the marginal return actually declines. And if now the wages level is at this one, like $6, right? Okay, so $6 as the current wages level, you can just draw a horizontal line across it and mark this one as wages, as the wages rate. So wages rate will be the cost that a firm need to pay. You can treat this one as the cost of labor, right? We can treat this one, wages rate will be cost of the labor. And then the marginal returns, we said this one will be the benefit, okay? So benefit of hiring, right? Hiring the worker, okay? If firm decided to hire one more worker, that means the marginal benefit of this worker should be larger than the marginal cost of this worker, right? So the firm will stop hiring. The firm will stop hiring at this point. The firm will stop hiring at this point. Because at this point, we have the marginal benefit, okay, we say the marginal return equal to the cost of the labor. So this part, so this part will be finally the demand curve of the labor and it's downward sloping, okay, it's downward sloping. Okay, so let's see. Firm will hire workers until firm will hire workers until marginal return equal the wages rate, right? And now we finish the demand and supply of the labor market. We finish the demand and supply of the labor market. Then we'll move on to talk about how the equilibrium will be determined in the labor markets. Supply and demand, okay, they move in the opposite direction, right? Supply curve is upward trend, demand curve is downward sloping, so they will finally intersect at one point. That point would determine the equilibrium wages and equilibrium quantity of the labor. Okay, so let me just draw a graph. So the market demand for the labors will depending on the number of the employees. More employers and then maybe hire more workers, right? It also depends on the marginal return of the labor in each firm and industry. If the marginal return of the labor increase, then firms and corporations would like to hire more workers because this worker can bring additional revenue to more additional revenue to the firm, right? But market supply will depending on the number of the workers. How many people would like to offer their worker, their how many people would like to offer their labor, okay, in the market. It also depending on each worker's willingness to work at a different wages level, okay? So let's see when demand and supply meet in their labor markets, okay, in one graph, they will finally intersect at one point, and that point will finally determine the equilibrium of the labor market. So you can see in this graph, okay, demand and supply they intersect at that point, and that point will determine the equilibrium wages and equilibrium quantity of the labor. So this part is very similar to the one that we already learned in chapter 3, right? Even in chapter 3, we talk about the markets for goods and services. Here we just change the markets to the labor. So the intersection of the supply and demand establish equilibrium wages. And now we would like to learn if there are something changes, what might happen in the labor market's outcome. So there are some changes in the market conditions might change the wages and employment level. For example, changes in labor's productivity. If the labor's productivity increase, what will happen to the market outcome? Changes in the price of the goods produced of the labor. Okay. And then changes in the legal minimum wages. If some policy changes, what will happen to the market outcome in the labor market? And then maybe the action of their labor units. Okay, the labor units will have a big power. Okay, it has a very big negotiation power in the wages. Look at the first one. If the marginal physical product increases, that means the productivity increase. That reflecting to the first changes here. Okay, so if the labor productivity changes, if the labor productivity increases, the wages might increase without sacrificing jobs. That means if now the workers' productivity increase, firms and corporations they might be willing to hire more workers, right? And then it will shift the marginal revenue outwards. So this one, if we reflect in there, if I just use one graph demonstrates this type of a change. You can see this will be the wages, right? And this is the labor quantity. Original demand and supply curve will lie this way. If now the productivity increase, it will shift the marginal revenue outwards, which will shift this demand curve outwards, right? And actually, it will relate. You can compare with the original equilibrium. So if I treat this point A is the original equilibrium point, and point B here will be our new equilibrium point. Compare with point A and point B, you can see wages increase, right? And even hire more workers. So this is a very good signal in the labor market. So all workers will earn higher wages, and equilibrium numbers of the workers will occur at higher levels of equilibrium. That means now the firms and corporations will hire more workers. So that will be our first case. Shift this marginal revenue, or we say the marginal revenue of the product outwards, resulting in higher equilibrium wages and higher equilibrium quality of the labor. Now let's look at, as the market output prices increase, what happens? Market output prices increase. Initially, the one box of the strawberry just was $2, but now one box of strawberry was $4. The double, right? And then we know the marginal return. That marginal return will equal marginal product, physical product times price, right? If this productivity doesn't change, but the price increase, that means the marginal revenue will also increase, right? So if marginal revenue increase, that will also shift the marginal revenue curve outwards. So similar, reflect on the same situation, okay? You can see if I treat this as wages, this is the labor, original demand curve, supply curve, right? This is the original equilibrium, wages, W1 and L1. But now, because of the output price increase, okay, the output market price increase, it will increase the marginal returns as well. Demand curve is part of the marginal return, right? Therefore, you also shift this demand curve outwards, result in a new equilibrium with point, okay? And then we can see for the new equilibrium point, it bring the new equilibrium wages at W2 and equilibrium labors higher at L2, okay? So you can see a higher output price will also change, okay, will also change the equilibrium wages and equilibrium quality of the labor. Now let's look at how minimum wages will affect. Minimum wages is the government policy. It will intervene the market, and then definitely it will change the market outcome. So you can see that from, let's see, from 1968, okay, from 1968, sorry, it's not from 1968, from 1938, okay, from 1938, the minimum wage was just 25 cents per hour. But now you can see the minimum wage increased to $7.25. Okay, this is our current federal minimum wage. Different states have different minimum wage. In Oregon, the minimum wage will be $11.25, which is higher than federal level. And how does minimum wage would change the market outcome? Let's see. In this graph, okay, initially, okay, we have the demand and supply curve. Demand and supply curve that determine the equilibrium wages, okay, determine equilibrium wages. So I will draw a graph here. Similar to this graph, okay, I treat this as a wages. This is the labor quantity. We have demand curve, we have supply curve, okay? They intersect at this point, and this point is the equilibrium wages. Okay, if I assume maybe like $5, and then maybe 100 people will be higher. Okay, so why the government would set the minimum wage? Minimum wage will be the lowest wage rate that the firms and corporations need to pay you hourly, right? According to the federal regulations. In order to improve the workers' working conditions and improve the workers' income, the Federal Reserve now, not Federal Reserve, our government now announced the minimum wage should be $7.25. This is our current minimum wages, okay? It's higher than the equilibrium wages. So at this point, what you need to do, please draw a horizontal line across this the whole demand and supply, and then mark this one as minimum wage. This is the minimum wage. Minimum wage means all the firms and corporations need to pay you the lowest wages level of $7.25 per hour. They might pay you higher, but not lower. So lower than this minimum wage. Lower than this minimum wage or illegal, right? Lower than this minimum wage are illegal, and higher than minimum wage is fine. Okay, those are legal. But this minimum wages law might change the market outcome because you can see in this graph, I marked 2 points. Okay, this is point A, is the minimum wages intersect with demand curve. I mark it as point A. Okay, for point A is in the demand curve. That means when wage increase, firms and corporations probably will only hire 80 workers. As now the labor costs increase, they just want to hire fewer workers. However, you can see there is another point, point B here, right? Point B is on the supply curve. That means now the government increase the minimum wages higher than the equilibrium wages. It will motivate more people join the labor markets, right? So there are more suppliers in the market. Maybe 120 workers would like to offer their work, right? It will result in what will result here. We will have the supply. We'll have the supply equal 120 workers, right? But demand of the worker only equal 80, which will result in the surplus of the labor markets, right? And the surplus will equal 120 subtract 80, which will equal 40. That means those 40 workers cannot find their job. Even this minimum wage will increase the welfare for the people who already have job. However, it will also result in some unintended consequences, right? It will also bring unemployment. So very similar in this graph, okay, for minimum wage, draw a horizontal line across it, the whole graph, find out the demand and supply individually separately, and then you can find out the surplus of the labor. All right. So now the last part we would like to talk about union. As I just mentioned, union has a very strong negotiation power, right? Union has very strong negotiation power. So workers might form a labor union and bargain collectively with employees to get a higher wages or maybe a better benefits. So a union must exclude some workers from the market to get and maintain an above equilibrium wages. And excluding workers will increase the non-union labor supply. Okay, so let me see how this will affect the labor market. As we just talked about unions, okay, they were collectively negotiated with the employees for higher pay. So it might exclude some workers from union. okay, from inside. Some people working insider in union, okay, they might exclude it, okay, and those people they will become non-union in the market. So the union outsider, this is what we call the people not in the union, okay, the union outsider. So this is talk about this is non-union, okay, non-union labor market. This is wages. This is the labor force, demand and supply. Okay. Originally, okay, we will have the equilibrium wages, equilibrium quality. But now the excluded workers will increase the non-union labor supply, which will shift this labor supply curve to the right hand side and then result in a lower wages level, okay? A lower wages level. This is what we say, like in insider of the union and outsider of the union, their wages are very different. The wages are very different. So union will shift the workers to non-unionized labor market and then decrease their wages. Okay, so I think we will talk about the whole chapter, okay? All about the labor markets. We're focusing on labor supply. We're focusing on labor demand. We know that when demand and supply being introduced, then we talk about equilibrium, right? And then we talk about how the changes in productivity, in their goods prices, this is what we said, output prices, and the government policies, or even for the union, can change the whole market outcomes of the labor. Okay, so this is the end of this chapter. Thank you.